Blog Talk Radio.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Franchise Interviews, where we're asking the franchipreneur who owns one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott, with my co-host, Don Johnson. And if you've ever dreamed about owning your own business, then you've come to the right place. Today we have a great show. We're meeting with John Siipola of the franchise opportunity Verlo Mattress Factory Stores. And Verlo Mattress Factory Stores has locations throughout the nation and is continually growing. As a franchisor, Verlo Mattress Factory Stores continually adds value to their franchisees' investment by providing Verlo-specific services and products that are above the industry standard in quality and price, with the bottom line of the franchisee in mind. And that's coming up in segment 2 of Franchise Interviews. Our first segment today is being brought to you by Franchise Interviews, LLC. And Franchise Interviews gives you an up-close, behind-the-scenes look at franchising and entrepreneurship through our website, franchiseinterviews.com, where you can hear and read interviews as well as get inside tips from some of the most successful sources in franchising. Our weekly franchise radio show on Blog Talk Radio, where each week you get to hear new interviews with franchisors, franchisees, franchise experts, franchise authors, and franchise attorneys. And our monthly franchise newsletter, which is a must-read for anyone looking to buy a franchise. And Don, welcome back to another edition of Franchise Interviews. How's your week going, my friend? I know you're a little under the weather this week.
Yeah, I guess it happens when you have little kids. They get sick.
It's true.
Good chance you're going to get sick. Yeah, so...
right, the whole family gets sick.
But that's the way it goes. So I'm back feeling fine, and just got to get caught up a little bit.
Right, absolutely. Can you imagine we're in May already? I mean, it's just April's gone, and we're in a new month, you know?
Yeah,
it's just...
fast year so far.
I would say so, you know. Our last show, Don, we got to meet with very special guest, franchise attorney Nancy Leonard. And Nancy spoke about what a franchisee should look for in reviewing the lease for a franchise location and why it's important to use experienced leasing attorneys to do that review. She also spoke about the new FDD. I still got to get used to saying that, Don, from FDD to UFOC. And, went over some of the changes. I thought it was a very informative show. What were your thoughts on last week?
Yeah, and we've had her on a couple of times. Mm-hmm. And, just having on attorneys in the past, with each time we have them on, it's just so, it just reminds me just that it's mandatory to have their type of service. Yeah, throughout the whole process, you got to have an attorney review the FDD and the franchise agreement. And, things like if you're leasing space with your franchise, review the lease. And so many different aspects of a lease can be difficult. There's so many things that can be negotiated. And it was interesting. She said of herself, you think of an attorney that can start reviewing stuff and can make the deal fall through, but she referred to herself that they're deal makers, not deal breakers.
Yeah, isn't that very clever? Yeah, I think that's what she does. It's and that's so important. You asked the question, Dom, why wouldn't anyone consider hiring a franchise attorney when you're buying a franchise, And the only thing I can think of would be cost, but this is something that you really, she charges a flat rate fee, and this is something that you just kind of incorporate into the whole loan process, isn't it?
Right. It's well worth the investment with just if you don't have someone reviewing it and you miss some things, it can be crucial in business with your overhead, with everything. So.
Absolutely, yeah. There was she, on her website, if you go to lenardlaw.com, she has a bunch of great articles on franchising and actually the topic that we spoke about last week. This is something called, and again, it's written by Nancy, Legal Issues in Real Estate Leases. Some of the things that she spoke about, I'll read a couple paragraphs for you. It says, it can seem quite daunting when first faced with a commercial lease that is filled with pages of terms and conditions, as we discussed. How does a potential tenant decide the important issues? Most prospective tenants are concerned with the business terms of the lease. What is the rent? What are the additional charges, repairs, and maintenance responsibilities? However, the legal issues, if not properly addressed in the lease, can be extremely costly to the tenant. And this is something that we spoke about last week. It says the first issue encountered by a commercial tenant is the common area maintenance charges, commonly referred to as, Nancy said, CAM charges, passed on to the tenant. It's typical for a landlord to pass on charges incurred for real estate taxes, insurance, exterior maintenance, etc., on the entire building of which the parcel is just a part. the formula for calculating those charges can make a significant difference in the tenant's monthly expenses, because landlords usually like to calculate CAM charges by a fraction of which is the numerator is the square footage of the parcel, and the denominator is the square footage of the lease space. It says this formula favors the landlord by having the tenant pay CAM charges for part of the unleased space. So where Nancy comes in is by changing the formula to state that the denominator is the square footage of the entire building or of the leasable space, the tenant is being charged a smaller, more reasonable charge, thus making them deal makers, not deal breakers.
Yeah, just one example of...
Just one example of like probably like another 50 that she could have really gave us, So as you use the word mandatory, it is certainly mandatory, I believe, to hire a franchise attorney. So
right.
Very good show, very informative, and I'd love to have her back. And again, you can actually go to lenardlaw.com, and her website's very informative as well. So thanks again, Nancy, and again, we'll have to have her back on the show.
Right.
What else we have going on today, Don? We have a great show today, and I know over the next several weeks.
Yeah, today, like I said earlier, John Siipola, Verlo Mattress Factory Stores. Looking forward to hearing.
Yeah, I'm excited about this show. As you mentioned, I've mentioned on the last several shows, I was in the bedding industry. I worked for Macy's selling beds, and for me, Don, it was a challenge because you're competing with in this part of the country, the Northeast, you have your Bloomingdale's and all your other furniture retailers, and it was hard to distinguish our beds from everybody else's. So Verlo has something very unique. So I'm excited to talk to John about that today.
Yes, definitely. And on May 15th, Marty, we're meeting with franchise Rita's.
That's great.
Rita's Water Ice.
I know my wife is excited about that show, right? She keeps asking when's Rita's coming on the show.
Yeah.
And, especially this time of year, I tell you, Don, we've been to Rita's so far about 4 or 5 times, over the last 3 weeks, and the place is always packed, so what a business they've come up with. And, I was always surprised Rita's hasn't been around as long as I thought. I mean, they've been around, I thought they were a company that's been around 50 or 100 years. I think they started, was it 1978 or was it in the 90s? I can't even remember.
Well, it says here, they opened their first store in 84.
84, okay. Right. So they have a history, that's for sure. I was just picturing for some reason they were around like 100 years, though.
They opened up in Ben Salem.
That's right.
Yeah. May 22nd, we're meeting with our friend and franchise expert, Joel Labava.
That's great.
And he has an e-book, and he's been in the business a while, and he'll tell us everything, what's going on, and it's always interesting, very informative.
Yeah, Joel's very informative. He really knows his stuff regarding franchising, and he's doing a lot of different things with veterans right now, with franchises as well. So
he has a blog on that, I think.
He does. He has a blog on that. I think it's called, Fran for Vets? I don't know. We'll have to post that up on our website, though.
Right.
When he comes on the show. So I'm looking forward to having Joel back as well.
Yeah, so definitely we have some, as usual, good exciting shows lined up. We'll be announcing next week some other ones as well. Absolutely.
We'll get those up on the show page as well. I have something quick, Don, today from one of our former guests, as you remember, Jim Cohen of Franchise Perfection. And you can get more information on Jim by going to franchiseperfection.com. He wrote an article. They can get right off the website. It says, how to identify your must-have priorities in a franchise. And there's just a couple of different things I'll kind of go over. It says, franchising represents a viable approach to business ownership. For a price, the franchisor teaches its a proven business model and methods to the franchisee who shoulders all operating and financial responsibilities of the outlet. But just as franchising presents the opportunity to be successful in your own business, it's also a chance to get stung if you choose unwisely. Because what follows is a list of questions that I have compiled to help you identify must-have priorities, such as one is, what is the industry trend? Is the franchise in an industry that's doing well currently and is projected to do well in the future despite an economic slowdown? Now the franchise that we're having on today, Verlo Mattress, this type of franchise is really doesn't have to worry. It's kind of like recession-proof is the word I guess I'm looking for. People always need beds, you know what I mean?
Right.
And, what I was excited about, I don't know if you know, I think 60 Minutes had this report on. It was about was like 3-4 weeks ago, talking about the benefits of sleep. There's a lot of like medical benefits to getting sleep. I'm sure, John knows about all that stuff as well. I know when I sold beds, I used to try to emphasize the benefits of getting a good night's sleep, So that's one thing is what trends are going on. What is the total investment required? And that's something very important. The advantage of buying a franchise is in many cases the franchisor has done the homework, so they're pretty much able to tell you what the total investment is going to cost you.
Right.
How experienced is the management team? Very important. What is the minimum number of employees that are needed to run the operation? Are you comfortable with the hours and income potential of the franchise? You have to ask yourself this: how much money do I need to make to survive or even, live a comfortable lifestyle? The lifestyle that I'm used to. Investigate whether the existing franchisees are opening additional units. That's always a good sign, isn't it? Watch out for the, this just reminds me of Nancy, watch out for the real estate lease. It says for most retail franchises, the triple net lease of the location is the biggest financial commitment, larger than the total franchise investment. Can you imagine that? So this whole lease thing, Don, once again, go back to last week's show, the importance of hiring a franchise attorney, somebody who's a deal maker, not a deal breaker. It's very important. And just a couple more it looks like they have here. What is a typical working day like? Are you comfortable with the image and the lifestyle? Do you remember that when we had Carol Mercurio on the phone? She kind of addressed that question as well. She's a franchise broker for Matchpoint. Right. How do you see yourself? Do you see yourself going to work in a suit every day, or can you picture yourself, wearing like a McDonald's outfit? You know what I mean? So these are all important things. What kind of image when you're at a cocktail party? What do you want to tell people? So there's a certain image that goes with certain franchises. So these are all. I thought this was a great article, very, very important. And again, you can read the whole article by going to franchiseperfection.com, and that's by Jim Cohen.
Yeah, so many questions that maybe you don't think about.
Exactly.
That maybe you should speak to a specialist in that area too, a franchise consultant or broker.
Something we were speaking about last week too. The franchise brokers that we've had on the show, up to this point, and we've had really some of the best in the country. You can see the value in working with a franchise broker. When we were speaking to when we had Fish Window Cleaning, I don't think those two gentlemen ever would have bought a fish window cleaning franchise if it wasn't for the franchise broker that they were working with. They would never consider it. So
good point,
the broker actually brought that opportunity to their attention based on what their needs were. And their needs were spending more time with family. That was very important to them. So it was a great article. I know you had a couple things as well.
Yeah, well, a couple of regional franchise shows. Coming up, Marty, this weekend in Southern California has a show, Saturday and Sunday.
That's right.
Further in the month, May 17th and 18th, the Dallas-Fort Worth area is having a franchise show. This is the Franchise and Business Opportunities Expo.
Okay, good, right. They have more regional kind of shows, and I know you've been to those before, and you said they're pretty good, actually.
Right. Smaller shows sometimes can be very effective. And
right, I agree.
Properly market and advertise. People interested can go to US Franchise Expos, it's with an S.com. So.
Okay. Great.
And also May 31st and June 1st in Jacksonville. So we have California, Texas, Florida having shows over the next month, and you can go to usfranchiseexpos.com to find out about that.
Okay,
Here's something in the New York Times, Marty. Pelt's offer is accepted by Wendy's, written by Michael de la Merced. After more than 2 years of bickering, Wendy's International and Nelson Peltz have tied the knot. Wendy's, the financially troubled fast food chain, said Thursday it had agreed to sell itself for about $2.3 billion to Mr. Peltz, also known as Triarch Companies, the parent of Arby's restaurant chain. The deal will create one of the nation's largest fast food chains. So it's interesting because you don't ever think of, I know this day and age there's always going to be companies bought and sold, but Wendy's has been such a solid company and leader. You're always surprised when you hear about a purchase like this.
Yeah, I know Wendy's was struggling. We had a couple, we've referenced some articles about, Wendy's struggling and kind of coming up with new ideas, and I think they added breakfast to their menu several months ago. Right. So it's interesting. This might be pretty powerful. I tell you, in this part of the country, in Pennsylvania, Wendy's is doing a lot of advertising now, you know.
Right.
So I'm not sure if that has anything to do with it, but this whole buyout thing.
They say here from Wendy's stockholders, the shares have fallen more than 50% in the last 2 years. The company, whose earnings last quarter disappointed Wall Street analysts, has struggled since the death in 2002 of its founder and spokesman, Dave Thomas.
Right.
Here was their leader, fortunately passing away about now 5 years ago, and I guess maybe the company's slowly been declining ever since. It says combined, Wendy's and Arby's will have 10,000 restaurants, sales of about $12.5 billion, though they will still be run as separate units.
Okay.
It's a pretty good combination, Arby's and Wendy's. I like Arby's.
I think so, yeah. I mean, you guys have Arby's out in Jersey where you are, right?
Yes.
Okay.
They're at some of the rest stops and so forth.
They are. Okay. I like Arby's. You know, I was really unfamiliar with them until we came out here in Pennsylvania, and they're all over the place. But I also like Wendy's. I think they're just, they're a fantastic chain. You know, it's kind of sad to see what's happening. You know, because I know a lot of times where Connie and I have walked into a Wendy's, unfortunately, and maybe it's just the location, where we are, it's usually pretty empty, which is why we like going in. You don't have to wait online. Right. So I'd love to see Wendy's come back because I think you also admire Dave Thomas, Don. I think he's a great guy, and
right.
I've
read his book. He's been referenced in other franchise resources.
Absolutely. He's always someone I admired. They did a great story on him on the biography channel, and I almost had the chance of interviewing him for a newsletter that I wrote a while back, and unfortunately, Dave got sick, and so I was unable to do that. But nevertheless, it's.
I thought the company would be fine. 10,000 restaurants, pretty powerful, and they're saying
the buying power, economies of scale and things like that might help a bit. So.
Right. Here's something, Marty. April 15th by John Reynolds in Franchising World magazine. U.S. franchise growth outpaces other business sectors, new study finds. To indicate economic size in a different way, franchise businesses provided more jobs in 2005 than all manufacturers of durable goods, such as computers, cars, trucks, planes, communications, equipment, primary metals, wood products, and instruments. Franchise small businesses generated more jobs between 2001 and 2005. I guess this is always the latest information we can get. It's never completely up to date. But between 01 and 05, created more jobs than several of the nation's major economic sectors, including durable goods manufacturers, according to new research released recently by the International Franchise Association Educational Foundation, conducted by PricewaterhouseCoopers. The study is the second comprehensive look at the franchising industry prepared by the research firm. The inaugural study was released in 2004. The IFA meeting in Orlando for its 48th annual convention, which we were at, unveiled the study results before gathering more than 3,000 franchising professionals whose daily involvement drives the industry's expansion. While growth in a number of establishments was only slightly greater than other business sectors, the increase in jobs, payroll, and economic output was significantly higher. Direct economic output of franchises grew by more than 40% to $800 billion in 2005 from $625 billion in 2001, while economic output of all businesses grew by 26% to $20.1 trillion from $16 trillion.
That's something.
And they talk about job growth gaining. Employment generated by franchises grew by more than 12% to 11 million in 2005 from 9.7 million in 2001, while jobs in all businesses grew by only 3.5%. So it seems like franchising industry is outpacing some other sectors and so forth.
That's incredible.
And the franchise total units is nearing in on 1 million.
Is it really?
Total franchise businesses, including all franchisees and everything.
Well, I remember when I first got into it, Don, I guess it was back in 1999. I think the numbers were like around 600,000, if I remember correctly. So that's amazing. That we're approaching that 1 million mark. It's just that's something.
And that million amounted to slightly more than 3% of all business establishments in 2005. So you can imagine how the numbers are over the last couple of years. It's probably increasing pretty significantly.
It's hard to keep up with,
Franchise businesses today operate in more than 100 lines of business, including healthcare, fitness centers, employment agencies, hotels, motels, quick service, restaurants. I mean, the list goes on. Practically everything is being franchised. So we always like to give statistics, let people know what's happening. And just last, Marty, here's in Entrepreneur magazine, the May issue, in their franchising section, the article by Rhonda Sanderson is says, from warfare to home care, Air Force veteranpreneur successfully touches down as a Com4Care franchisee. It says John Perry initially joined the Air Force in September of '86 in order to help pay for college, but quickly realized that his time in uniform would afford him many more rewards. Perry saw the world during his 20-year tenure, spending 2 years stationed in both Japan and England for 4 years in Germany, in addition to visiting nearly 40 other countries. It's incredible.
That's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, being in the military, or just in general, somebody being able to visit that many countries. It says, while in Germany, Perry flew with the NATO, and upon his return to the United States, became an instructor at both Air Battle Manager School in Panama City and the Joint Stars surveillance system in Georgia. When he retired as a captain in December, Perry and his wife decided the time was right to open their own business. The pair researched a variety of concepts, but selected Com4Care based on the company's high standard of quality and compassion. There are so many companies out there that claim to be the best at what they do, but Com4Care truly exemplifies excellence, said Perry, who's 39. Everything they do, from the training and support they offer their franchisees to the programs they have in place for their clients, is first-rate and makes all parties involved as comfortable as possible. They opened their first Com4Care in Alabama in February '08, so just recently,
right,
and service a bunch of areas and counties, it looked like. So the magazine, Vetrepreneur, asked them, what do you enjoy most about owning Com4Care? He says, hands down, it's the people. Everyone we've interacted with has a real desire to help people. Many people affiliated with Com4Care, including myself and my wife, have experienced what it takes to care for a loved one in need, and it's that innate compassion that sets them apart.
Right.
How do you plan to grow your business in the future? There's already a need for home care services, and this demand shows no signs of slowing in the future. To accommodate this, we would like to open a second office in Montgomery within the next 2 years, to expand into Mobile by 2013. The last question, how has your military training helped you succeed in business ownership? He says the military has been a huge help in regards to time management, dealing with stress, and reading people. Without the training, starting my own business would have been that much more difficult. So this looks like a guy who really did his due diligence and investigation on the franchise, and it looks like he really was comfortable with the people from the franchise corporate office.
Right.
Felt comfortable, and feel that they're a leader in the industry, and his military background, and we've talked about this in the past. Sometimes they're the type of person who's really ideal for franchising because they're used to following a system.
Right.
And they're pretty, what's the word I'm thinking of? I guess they're used to a certain regimen. And
sure, absolutely. They're very disciplined. I think
right,
might be the word you're looking for, Don. Yeah, and
right.
I always said, if when it comes time for me to go back and pursue my doctorate's degree, I mean, this is a topic that I'd definitely love to research. Is do vets make better franchisees? I mean, it seems like they do from a lot of the articles that we've read.
Right.
Interviewing people that were in the military. That's not to say all people in the military would make great franchisees, but it seems like there is some kind of marriage there, or some kind of match, you should say,
Right.
Another interesting thing about this article that you just referenced on is that, this couple that you're talking about, again, they're looking to buy their second franchise. That's a pretty good sign, isn't it? When you see that,
right.
that somebody's buying a second, a third, and a fourth, that's always a great sign, So,
well, I think investing in a franchise, you really have to, right from the beginning, what type of expansion potential do I have?
Sure,
my
absolutely.
Territory, that's a big and a major question.
Right, not everybody's looking to buy, one unit. I mean, a lot of people do, you want to see the big picture, so.
Right. And Com4Care, by the way, people interested, it's Com, just C-O-M, the word for, and then care.com. They're based out of Bloomfield Hills, Michigan. Okay.
We've had a couple of senior care franchises on the show up to this point. We had, that was a great one, David Riddling of Visiting Angels.
Right.
I think this was back in January. We had him on the show. I thought he was great. I love that industry overall. I think it's fantastic. So I think that's
such an important service too.
Sure, absolutely.
Absolutely. Average age and the amount of senior citizens and.
Well, the market potential is incredible.
Right.
It's absolutely. Well, today, Don, we have a great show. As we mentioned earlier, we're meeting with John Siipola of the franchise opportunity Verlo Mattress Factory Stores. And Verlo Mattress Factory Stores has locations throughout the nation and is continually growing. As the franchisor, Verlo Mattress Factory Stores continually adds value to their franchisees' investment by providing Verlo-specific services and products that are above the industry standard in quality and price with the bottom line of the franchisee in mind. Hey, John, good morning. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Marty and Don. How are you this morning?
Oh, great today, John. John, joining us is, as you know, I think you know Don Johnson, and I know, Don, you wanted to say hi to Don and John and wish him a good morning.
Yeah, John, thanks for coming on the show. It's good seeing you at the franchise shows recently. You were in Orlando as well as D.C., right?
I was, and I just got back in last night at about 1:45 this morning, actually, so it was a short night. I've been on the road for 8 days. So.
Oh, geez. I hope you're drinking some coffee, John.
You know, I'm not, because that would probably make me too hyper for you guys. But it's awfully good to be back home. I'm at our headquarters in Fort Atkinson, Wisconsin.
Oh, that's
as you guys know, you can't run a company that's in multiple states today and sit at your desk. You have to be out there.
That's certainly true, absolutely. Yeah. John, what were you doing before joining Verlo Mattress? How did you get involved in
I've been in franchising for more years than we really want to talk about. Going way back, I was with Big O Tires. I was chairman of the board and senior operating officer. That was a public company.
Right.
It's now owned by Sumitomo. And you know what happens to the senior operating officer when that happens.
Yes, we do.
I rolled some proceeds from that into buying Las Vegas golf and tennis. I actually owned 10 franchise stores and then built it up to where we had 42 franchised outlets as well in 23 states.
That's fantastic.
Sold that and thought I might retire, served as an expert witness for the court system in franchising, and then came here about 2 years ago.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, my role at Verlo is really to take a family-owned operation that's over 50 years old and grow it into a nationwide brand.
Well, I was just going to ask you about that, John, if you can talk about the history of the organization, about Verlo.
Yeah, interesting. It was founded in Wheeling, Illinois in 1958 by Guy Day and Dale Williams. And Verlo is actually a combination of their wives' names, Verna and Lois.
Wow.
Subsequently, they bought a farm in Whitewater, Wisconsin as they expanded and moved the operation to Wisconsin. We're now headquartered in Fort Atkinson, even though our manufacturing and distribution facility remains on the campus in Whitewater. Fort Atkinson is one town away. We're about 30 miles southeast of Madison. Began franchising in the 80s. We now have 61 stores in 10 states and very aggressively looking to grow to become a nationwide brand.
So you've had some, just slow, sustained growth, which a lot of times is the right way to go about it.
Well, yes. On the, we had basically flat growth until just a little while ago, and we've started to grow again. Now we're seeing our franchise owners open additional units, and we're bringing new people and new blood into the organization, which is what we really need to do to grow our business.
Right.
It's interesting, John, too, because, I was reading about you guys. I know that even with some of your customers, you have, like, said, third and fourth generation customers, that have been using Verlo mattresses for a while, so it's nice to have that history.
What's really interesting is, Don, if you look at the most important statistic to me, about 65% of our customers are either repeats or referrals.
That's powerful.
It's not
That's probably highest in the industry.
It tells me that we're doing something right.
Exactly.
Not only on the value of our product, the shopping experience, but the product quality. And
it's fantastic.
In franchising, there are two basic types of franchising, as I'm sure you guys know, product supply and business format franchises. A product supply franchise, like a car dealership or a gas station, really competes on the basis of price and customer service only. As a business format franchise, we do a number of things. We do light assembly, we do delivery, and we run a retail store as well. And it ties right into really our mission statement, which is to provide quality, value-oriented bedding products at craftsman direct prices. And if we do that, all of a sudden we become value merchants.
Right.
We're not competing on a commoditized price, and that differentiates us from the pack. Plus, we're one of the few companies the only company I know of in franchising that custom makes mattresses. They're not mass-produced, individually made just for the individual.
Right. And that's so important, John. I was telling Don earlier, I worked in the bedding industry for years, and I was always frustrated. I sold beds with Macy's, and it was always about price. Who could give the lowest price? And in this part of the country, we have, I don't know if you're familiar with a Dial-A mattress. We see lose, so many sales to Dial-A mattress just based on because they offered a lower price. So it was great to see that, you guys, no one else is doing what you guys are doing, so the franchisee doesn't have to worry about that, saying, well, I can get this bed someplace else. You can't. It's unique. The
real differentiator, Marty, is if you buy a Verlo mattress, and we're going to make that for your specifications
right.
based on your sleep analysis. After you've slept on it for 2 or 3 months, we can provide a comfort guarantee because we assemble them locally. If you want it firmer or if you want it a little softer, call us. We can come out, pick it up, even give you a loaner mattress, re-engineer it, and deliver it back to you the next day.
That's a great service.
Nobody else can do that.
So important.
And, a mattress is like a pair of shoes. As you sleep on it for a while, it gets worn in, and it's natural to have a little body impression. But, the feel and comfort may change a little bit as you sleep on it.
Right, absolutely.
So that gives us a tremendous dynamic that, and we stand alone in that respect.
Now, John, does your client, come in already pretty much educated on the industry, or that's part of your sale is to educate them on how the Verlo mattress and system is above, the competition? Because like Marty said, there's so many places, whether it's the big retail store or the smaller retail chain just specializing in mattresses. I mean, there's a lot of competition out there. So I guess that's your job of your franchisees to really educate the person, or they come in already knowing. I know you have a pretty high retention rate, over 65.
It's a great segue into our training program. One of the things that we spend a lot of time on is training our new franchise owners, and more specifically their floor sales staff, in how to perform a sleep analysis. Well-being is becoming more and more important, especially with an aging population, and with a demographic that's getting up there, the boomers. So that the comfort, which is the most important thing in sleep, is almost undefinable. And we need to train our floor sales staff in order to be able to try to zero in on what comfort means to that individual and how we can best build and assemble a mattress to provide the level of comfort that they perceive as necessary. Great segue.
Absolutely. It's such an important topic, too, John, because, I sort of say 1/3 of our lives, I guess, are spent sleeping, and I know 60 Minutes, they recently did a report on I guess it was the medical benefits of getting a good night's sleep, so...
We have a line coming out, in fact, it's just being announced as we speak, 5 mattresses that are really geared for well-being, and they're using some of the new space-age materials, memory foam, some advanced alloy latex, and some other things, where we can get away from the traditional innerspring type mattress, which is still the bulk of our business, and we make some of the best in the business. But that line is centered around what we call a Verlopedic, using memory foam technology, closed cell viscoelastic memory foam. So we're very cognizant of that. We're also looking at and doing some experimentation in our R&D center on green products. There's more and more, I think, cognizance out there in the consumer public about organic materials, the use of organic materials.
Right.
And that's becoming, I think, or will become a more important sector of our marketplace.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So it seems like Verlo's, you're really on top of, and I guess you have to be to compete. You're really on top of everything new that's, in the industry that can benefit your franchisees, John.
We really have to be. We're in an $8 billion market, and everybody in the furniture business, everybody sells mattresses. There's a lot of competition out there. So we have to be very aware of what's going on, trends in the industry, and stay ahead of that curve.
How do you describe Verlo Mattress franchise to, prospective franchisees, John?
Well, we're a unique business concept in that it's a combination of light assembly, delivery, distribution, logistics, and retailing. Someone coming into our business, their first store is going to be 8,000 to 10,000 square feet, And it's going to be their warehouse assembly and distribution point, along with 2,500 to 3,000 square feet of retailing out front, so that the local customers can actually watch their mattress being assembled if they want to.
That's amazing.
What we do at corporate is we develop mattress kits. We develop the specifications. We provide the support and training. They get supplies from our vendors at least every 2 weeks, so that it maintains they have to maintain relatively a low inventory. If you look at the furniture industry, the typical furniture store runs about 96 days sales on hand for inventory. We run about 18, so we have very high inventory turnover rate, which translates to a beta value of money, as you guys know.
That's amazing.
So it requires a unique individual to fit into our culture. And you know, the success of franchising is really the success of the individual franchise owners. What we do at corporate is to provide the vehicle, the support network, the training, so they can hopefully optimize their unit economics. Relationships in franchising are so important because there has to be a trust factor between both the franchisor and the franchisee. And that trust is built over years of providing support, doing what you say you're going to do, and helping our individual owners to be successful.
It doesn't seem like you need a lot of employees to run a Verlo mattress franchise as well, John.
You know, I was just at the multi-unit conference down in Scottsdale, and in talking to a lot of the folks who have been very successful in the food industry,
right,
a huge differentiator between us and the casual dining industry that may require 18 to 20 employees
right,
to run. Our typical assembly site, assembly showroom facility, requires 5 to 7, and it's more of a career path environment with relatively low turnover. Very, very different dynamic.
That's fantastic. That's so important.
John, there's not much turnover with a lot of the franchisees' employees that they have.
You know, it's typically what will occur is that a young man or woman will come in, get hired, work on the delivery truck, learn customer service from that hands-on environment of being our last touch point, and we train them very carefully in that. Work from there into actually assembling mattresses, putting the mattress kits together, then become what we call a cat dog. Not only assembly part-time, but fill in out on the floor sales staff, learn the sales end of it, then learn our point-of-sale system, and once they complete all of our 5-star training program, they become, a full sales associate. So there's a good career path associated with that, and that tends to keep our people on board a long time. I know at the store here in Fort Atkinson, I don't think there's been much turnover at all. I mean, you always have a few new trainees coming in that, for whatever reason, don't stick around more than a year or so. But I think the average on the staff, I know the store manager has been with our franchise owner here for many, many moons. Their lead production manager has been here 11 or 12 years. Very, very stable environment.
I mean, it sounds like someone who really learns the entire business can then obviously become a franchisee. I imagine that's happened a few times.
I love it when that happens. If we can develop that farm system where we develop employees who come through our system and then become franchise owners, it's terrific because not only are they loyal owners, they know the system. And at a corporate level, it sure helps me on the training side.
Right, sure, absolutely.
I guess that's something else that can really separate you guys from the competition is having that lower turnover, having those loyal people who've learned the whole system, become franchisees.
Yeah, in reality, we've got a store out in Peoria, Illinois, and the owner out there was a customer in our Crystal Lake store, saw the operation, slept on one of our mattresses, and wound up, becoming a franchise owner, and is very successful. Been with us quite a few years now. The owner of our store up in Appleton, owns 2 stores, Appleton and Oshkosh, was the store manager for another franchisee. So we've got a lot of those success stories. One of the success stories that I do want to dwell on for just a minute is our Franchisee of the Year, who I nominated to the IFA and received that award last September in Washington, D.C. His name is Adele Salome. Adele came over to this country when he was 16 years old from Jordan with $20 in his pocket, and now some 25 years later owns 3 Verlo stores.
That's fantastic. I
What
think I
a
remember
great
seeing that story, yeah.
And, you know, that's the kind of success that gives me satisfaction, because it changed not only his outlook, it raised the entire family's, level of financial well-being.
Right.
A very vital member of the local community, and most importantly, he follows our system. And that's what's made him
so important, right?
That's a good point, John, with the sandwiches. Think of many people he's affecting in a positive way. Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's a great, we like to hear stories like that. Martin and I look to have those type of people on the show, those success stories, people who've gone into franchising who weren't really that successful before. Now they're doing well.
Right, yeah. Well, as you were saying, John, it sounds like, franchising doesn't really, discriminate. So whether you have, an MBA or a PhD or, this gentleman that you were just referencing, it's a great story that it provides an opportunity really to everybody on a level playing field,
Regardless of their background, if they'll,
right.
if they're bright, if they have management skills, if they have a passion for success, and they have integrity, we can go and train them to be successcul.
That's fantastic.
You said, John, follow the system. That's all you got to do.
Absolutely. That's the key to success in franchising.
Right.
We've already tried. We're pushing the envelope wherever we can. The folks who get in trouble, and I mean financial trouble, they try to reinvent the wheel or do something different.
Mm-hmm.
And they're spending their time, energy, and financial resources doing things that typically they're not prepared very well to do. And that gets them into difficulty.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that's why you have to find that right type of person. I'm sure Verlo had its ups and downs early on, and invested a lot of money to unfortunately go through some of those mistakes and problems. It's all worked out now. People don't have.
Well, everybody in franchising is always searching for that right person who's a cultural fit within their system.
Right.
And, we've all seen about the profiling and the computer programs, and I haven't found anything that works other than sitting down face-to-face, eyeball to eyeball, and getting to know someone.
That's interesting.
Nothing beats that. And the earlier in our front-end dance, as we're going through our franchise development, that we can meet someone, the more important it is for us to mutually make a decision whether or not this is going to be a good cultural fit.
What's a typical day like, John, for a franchisee, a Verlo Mattress franchisee, from the moment they get to the store till I guess the time they go home? Great
question. When you're first starting out, we're open 7 days a week, and a new owner we encourage to work most of those 7 days to really get to know the business.
Right.
We're going to support them and help them. But once you're up and running, and that can take anywhere from a couple of months to a year or so.
Mm-hmm.
We really look for people to manage their business as businessmen. We're not looking for them to be on the sales floor every day. We want them to know how to do every facet of their business, because when you're running a small business, you may have to fill in somewhere. As you get larger and open your second, third, or more stores, you become more and more of the general manager, business manager. Typically, and let me pick on our franchisee of the year, because I've followed him around in making that nomination to get very familiar with his day. He's usually, he has 3 stores, and he'll spend at least a day a week in each of the stores. He does work most weekends, but he takes time off during the week. His day typically goes from, making sure that everybody does their walk around in the morning, is familiar with today's goals. The age-old story in retailing. What are we going to do today, guys? Here's what we did last year. Here's the specials. Here's what we're merchandising. Here's what we're going to talk about today. Making sure that his staff is up to speed on the goals for the day. Making sure that the standards of cleanliness and merchandising are met before the store opens. He may take a long lunch, but he's probably there around closing time to make sure the cash out is done well. As you grow and get the organization larger and develop your talent internally, those demands become less and less, and you become more of the business manager.
That's fantastic.
So usually a franchisee is wearing several different hats. It sounds like.
Yeah, and welcome to small business.
That's true.
Everything from looking at advertising, talking to your ad reps, it's multifaceted. We need people who have a passion and be multidisciplinary. They have integrity. They do follow through. They pay attention to detail. They have a high energy level.
That's great. I was reading in just one of the magazines, John, I think it was U.S. Business Review. I guess your franchisees are going to be able to like monitor their progress and kind of like view like historical performance information as well.
Yeah, we've got a point of sale system that was developed by a parent organization that gives some great information on management reporting. And it's web-based, and you can go in at any time and look at everything from balance of sale to what my average costs are, what discounts are taking place. If my sales guy in a remote store is discounting and giving away free frames too often,
right?
It's the key to running any business is statistics and getting your arms around the financial performance of the business.
Exactly, it's like keeping a scorecard.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I think that's so important.
John, do you leave it up to the individual franchisees to kind of have their own sales contests and stuff like that to generate sales, or is that something that comes from corporate?
Actually, both are true. We do several sales contests a year out of corporate. We have one running right now that is our 50th anniversary. And it's based on a number of specific criteria where the sales people on the floor as well as the owners can participate with some very nice rewards. And we encourage our individual franchise owners to also run their local store programs and reward systems.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to have those type of things. You always got to have some type of goal or
and incentivized sales force is extremely important.
Right.
What about the location, John? I see you guys, I guess you help your franchisees in finding a location. And what is the ideal location?
The old real estate saw, location, extremely important.
Right.
We put in, after I came on board, we put in a site analysis system here in place. I was actually looking to hire a co-op student from the local college, University of Wisconsin, who had been majoring in GIS, or Geologic Information Systems, to come out and help us out. And the professor of the department said, my wife has a master's in GIS, she's very well qualified, and she's looking for a full-time job. Well, boy, did that solve my problems. We've built a database internally. We rely on a couple of database products to help us do demographic research. We've developed our site analyst has developed a regression analysis that gives us some pretty good potentials based on all of the local information and competition, so that we can really narrow it down to about an intersection where we want to be. And then it's a question of getting the local brokers involved. And, within this radius and this trade area, I want to see locations that fit our requirements for the assembly location, 8,000 to 10,000 square feet, depending on projections. Of course, we want visibility. I'd like to see a couple hundred feet unobstructed. We like to be near destinations where there's trade traffic coming by our signage. We like to be in demographic areas that had median income levels above $50,000. I mean, I learned early on in my life, if you're going to sell a product, sell it to people who have money.
Right.
So that's really key. And, last week we had a franchise attorney on who really knows about leasing. Is that something that corporate gets involved in, or you leave it up to the individual franchisee to hire someone locally to review the lease, John?
We encourage them to hire someone locally, but we're very much involved as well. But we're in an advisory and approval capacity. We have, on my staff, I have a franchise administrator, Jennifer Roetha, who does an excellent job in reviewing commercial leases. There are a couple of amendments that we require on contract, but it's extremely important. And, when you have a new franchise owner who may not have been in business for himself in the past, the first time they see a commercial lease, they can be really awestruck, because these things can be a half an inch thick.
Right.
They're full of a lot of legal language, and there's a lot of hooks in there that can put a franchise owner, on the hook for personal guarantee of $300,000 or $400,000. So it is important. We take a very close look at it. We provide advice. We suggest they get local counsel.
And it's such a key part of this whole process is their location, making sure they have the right lease, just making sure they are in the best position for success early on. It's so crucial, as you would say, John.
It absolutely is, because you can fix almost anything in business except the location. There you've got to break the lease and move. It's expensive. It's disruptive. Sometimes breaking the lease is extremely expensive.
Right.
And we've had a couple of situations like that. Because we're a mature franchisor, we have stores that have been in place for 20 plus years, and neighborhoods do transition, things change, and it can make for spending an awful lot of time on our side at corporate and angst and anxiety on the part of the franchise owner to get a location that's been in existence for 5, 10, 15, 20 years and move it.
Right.
That's interesting. John, one of the questions we like to ask someone like yourself is, what advice would you give to aspiring entrepreneurs looking to buy a franchise? The majority of our listeners are aspiring franchisees, so you can say.
A couple of things. And I started out by being a franchisee, so it was many years ago, but I remember some of the, not abject fear, but real anxiety before I took that quantum leap, because I had always worked for a living. Following graduate school, I worked for a consulting company, and my dad gave me some great advice. He said, the people who are really successful and happy, who are members of our local country club, tend to be the guy who owns the Dunkin' Donuts or the guy who owns the taxi service, the local small business people who are parts of their community as opposed to the corporate gypsies. And I was on track to be one of those corporate guys. So I became a franchisee, and that's how I learned about franchising. And number one, you've got to really do some self-examination. Can you be a high-energy, detail-oriented manager who spends his spare time getting involved in local community activities? Because it's a 7/24 job to run a small business. And if somebody is looking for a lifestyle that will support them, playing golf or fishing or whatever, yeah, maybe after some period of time when you've built your business, but certainly not the first few years. The first few years are going to be very intensive.
Right.
You need the energy level, you need the personal commitment and motivation, and you need the family foundation in order to be able to do that, which is one of the reasons why I like to talk to the spouse of a candidate who's thinking about coming on board with Verlo.
That's interesting.
Because if there's any crack in that relationship,
right,
we're probably going to wreck it because of the amount of commitment and the intensity to get a business up and running. Now, it doesn't stay that way. And clearly, we'd hope that after a couple of months, everything is great and they're making a lot of money and people are in place and they're being delegated to. But, in business, you never know. And it can be outside of your realm of responsibility. You open a local business. We had a store last year that opened in a great location. Corner lot, great visibility, good demographics, and unbeknownst to us, right after we opened, the local city council passed an ordinance, and they ripped up the streets, pulled out everything, and it was under construction for 4 months. Nobody could park, nobody could get into the store. Well,
wow.
You can't foresee a lot of those things.
Right.
You can try to ameliorate the problem by participating locally in the political scene, but that's going to delay a break-even point by that 4-month period until the construction's over and you can really start to get the local traffic in place.
Exactly.
So there are things beyond your control that are going to be frustrating, and it's the Murphy's Law of a small business. And it takes a strong family foundation sometimes to be able to weather those. When it's good, it's great, and when it's not so good, we all work harder to make it great.
Mm-hmm.
You've been very successful in franchising, John, so you bring up some great points there. People have to be aware of. And we've talked about that before, Marty, when we've had some franchise consultants and brokers on, how your whole family has to be on board with this, especially your spouse. Mm-hmm. And me being in financing, sometimes I hear we think we're moving forward with someone, and all of a sudden I get a call or email that all of a sudden now wife or husband are not 100% on board. So it puts the whole process on hold. So you really have to make sure it's 100% firm that both spouses are ready to move forward with this, because it is a big commitment.
Yeah.
One of the things that I always talk to about people considering coming on board is have you considered an exit strategy? Everyone who goes into business needs to be thinking about, how do I sell to retire? How do I sell to have my progeny have this business? Whatever their objective is, it's something that should be thought through on the front end. And of course, one of the advantages in franchising is that there's typically a value premium above depreciated assets because of brand value.
That's a great point. Also, is that a lot of people are so excited about opening and starting a business, you don't think about what happens if things don't go as planned, or what's your long-term goal? How long you want to be doing this for?
That's
how
right.
You want to set yourself up?
Most franchise owners who come on board with us are probably in the age range of 40 to 55.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you build a very good business and you grow it into a multi-unit operation, at some point, you're probably going to want to retire. And maybe you have got kids who will come into the business and take over. Maybe you'll want to sell it at a premium, and that will provide your retirement, the funding for your retirement.
Good point. John, I'm looking on your website now. You have a very nice website. One section has top 10 reasons to buy a Verlo Mattress Factory Stores. Just so many selling points: steady, recession-resistant growth, thriving industry, the advantages of a strong brand.
In all honesty, let me qualify recession-resistant.
Okay.
When you talk about who buys a mattress, it's typically a precipitous life event. I'm moving, I'm getting married, I'm getting divorced, I graduated from college, I came out of the military, I'm buying a house.
That's true.
The housing market, as we all know, has been in the tank in most parts of the country. That's one of the primary motivators for people buying a mattress. So there's a segment of our business that right now is down, and that's because of housing sales. Other things that negatively affect retailing in general are expensive gasoline because it drains discretionary income.
Right.
We're probably more resistant to recessions and economic downturns than other things because in retailing, much is a discretionary expenditure. When you need a mattress, you need a mattress.
True.
And how important is a good night's sleep if you wake up every morning and your back or your neck hurts?
Right.
So we have resistance, but we're not recession-proof.
That's fantastic. John, we have about 60 seconds. What are Verlo Mattresses' plans for the future? How big would you guys like to get?
Obviously a lot bigger, and one of the reasons why I was brought on board by the founders was to help grow it because the company had grown through friends and family, basically. I think that we can go into virtually any suburban marketplace in the U.S. and be successful because we have a unique product, we have a very good business format, and we provide something that people can't find on the open market, and that's a custom-made mattress that is supported by a very conscious organization that will help them for the duration.
That's great. Is there a certain part? Right. Is there a certain part of the country that you guys are looking to aggressively expand, John? Or?
Well, because we distribute mattress kits, obviously I'd like to grow in concentric circles so that we're not sending trucks 1,000 miles away that are empty coming back.
That's true. That's great. Well, I want to thank you again, John, for coming on the show today. You've been a fantastic guest. I'd love to have you and someone like Adele come back on our show, to talk more about this great franchise opportunity.
Terrific. Appreciate it, guys. Have a
Thanks,
good day.
John.
Thanks so much, John. Have a great day today.
We'll see you at the next show, John.
Great concept, huh, Don?
Yeah, definitely. Very unique.
Something different that we haven't discussed before,
Right.
So, it's just, I think we should keep our eye on Verlo Mattress. I think they're going to be very big.
Yeah, so many selling points. I can understand why someone would want to invest in this franchise, and with John on board, with his experience and history and so forth, definitely good things are going to be coming their way, some nice growth.
Absolutely. Well, you did a good job today, Don, and again, our next show is going to be, was it Rita's, right?
A couple of weeks, yeah.
That's right, so bring your appetite for that. All right, I'll see you next week, Don.
Okay. Have a
Take
good
care.
day.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.